so excited.
It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Kassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
What is happening? Welcome to Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction. I am not Dustin Nielson. The big fella's gone for Christmas. God bless him. Safe travels to you, big fella. I know you're looking forward to it. It must be interesting for him because he's usually away.
I know.
And I'm actually very excited for him.
Yeah.
Because and I mean, Cass, you know as well, with kids and family, it's what a hard time to be away. So I'm excited for the big guy. And with that, I'll welcome the jovial Joaquin Gage sitting with me here in studio.
Pleasure to be here. And
we've got the marvelous Matt Kassian joining us here. Yeah, I tried to Reed and I do this thing on our show. It's the word of the day, so I'm trying to, extend my vocabulary as much as I can. I know that was very simple with jovial and marvelous, but we're getting there, boys.
That's Cass's wrestling name.
We're getting there. Yeah. I got a lot of wrestling names. You know what though? Thank you for that though. That I feel uplifted and encouraged.
Magnificent.
Is a good reminder. Yeah, good reminder for everyone out there to speak those good things over top of people. It's good to do, especially in a holiday season that isn't always easy for everybody.
'Tis the season, right?
I got a question for you guys. You guys being of the males like myself. How's the Christmas shopping done? Are you a guy that works well under pressure, waits till the last possible minute, or have you got some of it done?
I'm done.
Oh,
I'm done.
Okay.
And I actually had to make a last-minute stop last night on my way home from here. My daughter informed me that she wanted to get a few little gifts for her friends at school. There's about 5 of them, and I said, "Wow, that's very thoughtful of you." So I went to the Dollar Tree and got some little girl things, bath bombs, lip balm, those little bags that they can put them in. So that was the extent of it. Now, I'm sure as you guys as well, I mean, my wife handles the majority of it, and I much prefer that. And I believe she's, it's good. We're good to go.
Just enjoy this time of when your daughter says, "Yeah, hey, you know what? I'd like to get something," and is okay going to the Dollar Tree. Yeah. I mean, my daughter seems to think it's just fine using my wallet for her friends because
I just picked up some Lululemon gift cards, Dad.
Let's go to Aritzia.
No big deal.
What are you talking about? We're not getting them. What are those? The super poof jackets here.
Daddy played in the NHL. He's not still in the NHL, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Cass, what about you? Are you? How are you guys doing? Are you ready for Christmas?
We're pretty close. So like my wife is, you guys know, she does most of the planning, but we have a shared note list where we kind of go through like what
That's
would
smart.
be on the kids list or what we might get for the kids. And
is
so
that
we
on
both
your
have
notes
the ability
app?
So we both kind of continually leading up to Christmas edit it, and then we kind of go through, and then she was the one that actually went out and got everything, but we kind of came to consensus on what we were getting each of the kids, and it's more her. She has better ideas, which is not surprising, than I do, and is more thoughtful with that sort of thing. So I had some contributions. She had more contributions, but we're pretty close, and we actually do. If there's anything that I think that I want, I'll put it on there too, and she does the same. So I'm not having to guess.
That's smart.
She's got a list on there, and she'll even put links to things on there to make sure that you get the right one. If there's something that's specific that she has that she would like, and we kind of use that for things that we're not, maybe not frivolous items, but stuff you might not just go get yourself, where you're like, I don't really feel right just going out and buying that. But putting it on the Christmas list to have someone else get it for me is a little bit of an extravagance. That's what we do. So it's good. I got to give a shout out here, if I can, for my buddy.
Yeah. Give her.
Who has got an Alberta company called Happy Hippo for stocking stuffers for the kids. It's they do cosmetics, but they call them unicorn poop or reindeer poop. They have bath bombs.
Nice.
So they're like mini bath bombs. They come in a bag. They're like tiny little squares, and you can kind of drop a couple in if the kids are having a bath. They're fantastic. I have no idea if they have any left because they sell like crazy. But if you're looking for stocking stuffers, guys, and you are like wanting something that's pretty cost effective but kind of fun, because it's like, who doesn't want to have a bath with unicorn poop or with reindeer poop? It's a good little one. So you're talking about the dollar store on the bath bombs.
I've been waiting and waiting for that. My oldest daughter asked me the other day, it was just recent. She says, "Dad, is Santa real?" And she's 12.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So I said, well, if you believe in the Christmas spirit, then yeah, Santa's real. I mean, I believe that the Christmas spirit's there, and as long as you have that spirit, you're fine. And I was like, holy, you know what? Like, what did I just say? Did I give up the ghost here? What's going on? But I think I handled it okay. And it said, well, it's up to you. It's like, if you believe in this Christmas spirit, all is well.
I remember one time, obviously my kids are a little older now, but how you tell your kids, you know what, Santa's watching, you better, if they're misbehaving, try to carrot. I did that once, and my wife looked at me and goes, Joaquin, it's May. A little early.
You're ahead of the curve here, bud. Two Guys and a Goalie is brought to you by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become part of that team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work, or visit their page at indeed.ca. With the Next Person Up program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it's a career. Fellas, game day. It's Oilers game day. Obviously the discussion point here is Viktor Arvidsson. He's missed 15 games. He's been out since November 14th. What do you guys expect from a person? And I mean, we don't know much about what this injury was or what was ailing him, but what can Oilers fans expect from Viktor Arvidsson, who's going to be matched with Adam Henrique and Connor Brown on the third line? Cass, what do you say?
Well, I don't know what's fair, but I hope he brings a little bit more to that line. Now, we've seen flashes, Connor Brown putting some pucks in the net, which is good, but would be good to have maybe a little bit more consistency out of that line, production offensively. Now, they haven't been bleeding goals either, so it's not like they've been horrible. They've been pretty good. But I'm hoping for a little bit more offensive production. I mean, you look at that line, and with Connor Brown and Viktor Arvidsson on it, if Arvidsson, and this is where, because we don't know exactly what the injury was, we don't know exactly what he's going to have to overcome here from a mobility standpoint in particular. Like, is this something that's going to slow him down? Because if he is at full speed and completely back to full health here, I like the speed on that line. Now, not Henrique down the middle. It's not like he's the most fleet of foot, but between Brown and Arvidsson, you have two guys that will get in the corner, will dig out pucks, will go to the net. And it kind of has a feel of not an old school third line, but a line that maybe can dig in a little bit if they have to. They can hound you a little bit if they have to. So I'm not expecting the moon, I don't think, from Arvidsson, but what I want to see is, as he can, just be in it, right? Be in it, be around the puck, be good on the forecheck, be good defensively, don't make big mistakes. It's going to be tough. Coming back from an injury always is that first game. Your lungs are never the same, no matter how much you bag ski practice. The game just always hits you differently when you're actually out there. I want to see him keep it simple, be good on the forecheck, be aggressive, be in the corners, and playing that physical play that he, not like running people over, but just being engaged physically in battles everywhere on the ice. That's what I want to see from him tonight.
I don't know if you guys watched any of the Dallas Stars Toronto Maple Leafs game last night.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs third line with Robertson, McCann, Domi, they dominated, right? And I think
that's a pretty good line, though.
It is, I know, but
like
I'm looking at both third lines now with the Edmonton Oilers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm saying, you know what? I think they could do some damage to it. Causes issues with matchups especially on the road where, I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs are a really good team, but you're matching 1 and 2 against 2 and 1, what have you. And if your third line can provide that offensive punch and maybe contribute, I think they had three of the goals last night on that line, but something like that. And I don't know, maybe it's just recency bias of watching that game last night and looking at the personnel on that line, especially since Connor Brown has started to score a little bit here. I like it if that pans out, if they can find some chemistry kind of quick here and just kind of alleviate the pressure of having the big two lines have to score all the time. That could create a lot of issues for teams.
Now, what's it for both of you guys coming back from 15 days off? I mean, there was chemistry earlier in their year with Henrique and Arvidsson. That was probably one of the only bright spots the Oilers had. Is that something that they it's like riding a bike? Hey, let's get back on, boys, and let's get this train rolling? Or is that going to take some time to get things warmed up?
It could take some time. As you said, you have a player that just missed a couple weeks, right? Like, so it's not, I mean, maybe it's instantaneous. I hope it's instantaneous, and it's just right when they get on the ice, they feel the magic again. But could take Arvidsson some time to work into it a little bit. So let's have a little bit of grace for it. But hey, you never know. Maybe he just steps in, feels really good, and they just gel right away again. But I would say it's a positive thing. And that's probably where they're thinking of putting him on this line, is to say, hey, we might be able to get a little bit more. We saw some good things from Henrique and Arvidsson together earlier in the year, so why not go back to it?
And two, in the depth chart of the lineup, he's not being thrust into a spot where right away he's got to be thinking that he has to contribute offensively, right? This is kind of, I don't want to say getting your feet wet, but someone that you've had familiarity with.
Sure. Yeah.
The thing that he has going for him is he is a veteran. He's been in the league for a few years, but the problem with that, he's not as young as he once was, and the NHL just keeps getting better as the months progress, right? So I've used this a lot. It's you're kind of jumping on a treadmill while it's going here. So it'll take a few, I would say maybe a period and a half to get up to speed, but after that, we'll see how he does.
And just to clarify,
go ahead, Ken.
it was like, wasn't it 14 games, not 14 days?
I said it was 15 games since November 14th.
Oh,
15 games. Okay.
He's been out. I see the nasty chat popping off too.
Oh.
Yeah, 15 games.
Yeah, I was like,
missed.
I think I said 2 weeks. I was thinking the number of games, so it's been more than 2 weeks. So that's my bad.
Come see, come saw. He's been out for a while, and actually, safe to say, I mean, this is I guess a player that has been the biggest, I guess, question mark. When Hyman was out for a bit, you knew what he was going to be. And I mean, he's overachieved since his return. I mean, his 6 games he's had, or now 7 games, I think he's got 9 goals in those 7 games since his return. So, what are the realistic expectations here for Arvidsson moving forward? There was, I think Oilers fans, it's safe to say, I think Oilers fans expected and wanted more out of Viktor Arvidsson from what they had seen earlier in the season. Do you think this is now, because you see in the quotes that were thrown around, he wants this to be behind him. He really wants to prove himself here at Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this would be a great time to get that train rolling, specifically that third line. And like you said, Gage, add some depth. But what are the realistic expectations, let's say, for the next month for a player like Viktor Arvidsson, Cass?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I think we need to have tempered expectations early on, but we want to see him kind of get to the level that we saw flashes of. And I know there was people that had been disappointed with his consistency, but we were disappointed with the consistency of the whole team, where really since he's been out, they have now got into their rhythm and have been playing much better, scoring goals. People have been finishing. There were moments at the start of the year where he was a very bright spot in a very dark time. And there was moments when he wasn't good either, as there were for the rest of the team too. So if we can get to a point where, he has a lot more of those bright games where we're like, man, he was in it, he was around it, turning pucks over, getting opportunities, hopefully putting pucks in the net or creating secondary chances around the net for other people, then I think we're satisfied with him. I don't think we need to tag a specific number in terms of goals and assists on there, but I think it's fair to say in the next month, do we want to see him consistently be effective in forcing turnovers, effective in generating opportunities around the net, I think that's going to drive it more for me than just a purely, what goals did he have? What assists did he have?
Well, I'll just say this, Gager, before you go, but Mex Bezozu in the nasty chat says, Oilers fan realistic versus actual realistic. It's not that equal.
It's not the same.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, and everyone was struggling, like you had mentioned, Cass, but I remember Arvidsson has started to change his game a little bit, where he started to shoot the puck more. It seemed like when he got an opportunity, he wasn't looking to pass it off, and he was getting a lot of shots on net. I think one game he had like 7 or 8 shots on net, where in good positions. I think he was kind of warming up the goalie's sternum, but you could see a kind of change in his game before he got injured there. So I think he's kind of a shooter. I like when he's shooting the puck because it simplifies everything else. Okay, if Arvidsson's got it, he's probably letting her buck. I'm going to go to the net, or I'm going here. So it for guys that haven't played together in that amount of time, just making it as simple as possible, especially in these first 2 periods, to get that chemistry back, I think is really important.
Well, and Justin Balgoni in the nasty chat makes a good point. He said, points aside, I just want to see him be a complete a-hole to play against. And I'm going to add on to that, because what Oilers fans know of Viktor Arvidsson is Los Angeles Kings Arvidsson, where he was a pain in the ass every night. He was, the agitator. He was the guy stirring things up in the corner, mucking things up. We have not seen that here. Is that something that, maybe sitting out and maybe he can refocus on his game and what his game is? Can we expect to see some more of that, Gage? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, the perfect example, and we talked about, was Zach Hyman, right? That time that he spent injured or out, went on that 3-game road trip, and it really does seem like he kind of had a chance to review the game and identify a few areas where he could possibly do things a little bit different. And you see that in his game. Like, everything seems a lot more calculated with Zach Hyman. His positioning's better. The way he just on the forecheck, his angles of creating pressure, I think are a lot better. Could have been just a guy that scored 53 goals last year, and maybe gripping the stick a little bit too hard. And now it really looks like the same Zach Hyman. So Arvidsson's had a lot of time to kind of look at the game here.
Yeah, and incoming is another solid opponent. Boston, very similar record. They're 17-13-3 on the year, 7-3 their last 10 games. They're riding a 2-game win streak. I mean, the Oilers are 8-2 in their last 10. Both these teams are playing really good hockey, but we all know what happens when Boston comes to town. Boston plays a rough, tough game against the Oilers and tries to push them around physically. Is that something? Because, I mean, you've seen it. This team is just not physical. That's not their jam. They're not going to go out there and beat you physically. They're going to try outskate you and pass and shoot and all that. But is this a worry tonight, having this Boston team coming in that always seems to have the physical edge on the Oilers, Cass?
Well, I don't think the Oilers shy away from physicality, and the straight up physical. Like, I think, and even their star players, we see them give it back. Like, and we don't give them credit enough sometimes, like Draisaitl and McDavid in particular. Like, Draisaitl plays a physical game. Like, he counter hits. McDavid will hit guys. They're not afraid of that. Where they struggle sometimes, and we saw this against Florida, is their defensemen struggle not with just getting hit, but underneath heavy pressure. And Boston is one of those teams, and we talked about it on Tuesday with Gager, and I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it, but with Gager, where Edmonton's defensemen sometimes struggle, and some teams, or there's not that many teams rather, in the NHL that really have the capacity to give them those types of problems, Florida being one of them. And I think Boston's another. So it's kind of an interesting challenge to have this immediately after playing Florida, or so close to playing Florida, where you're going to have another team that's going to come in and try to pressure you. Now, I don't think Edmonton's worried about getting run over by them and everyone just getting hurt because of the hits, but I think they are going to have to find a way to deal with some of the aggression. that Boston brings, because they will be aggressive, your defensemen in particular. So here's to looking at Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm after they struggled against Florida to have a big bounce back here against another team that's going to really try to pressure you hard.
Cass, you hit it a nail on the head there. I'm the thing that excites me most about watching tonight's game is that response to how Florida established that very aggressive forward-checking style of not allowing Edmonton's defensemen time and space with the puck, right? So how do you defeat that? One is communication, good partnership with D-men, making simple plays, I think is paramount to alleviate that first forward checker. Sometimes, and I don't want to, I hate singling out, but there were times when Evan Bouchard was forced and he tried to do a little bit too much, right? Sometimes the simplest play is best in those scenarios where you can alleviate that, because there's no doubt that Boston's coaching staff watched that Florida game, right? So they say, okay, what was Florida successful with? Okay, we see the pressure. So if Bouchard has the puck, we're going to force him as quick as possible. Probably every defenseman, when they have the puck, they're going to try to force as much as possible. So Edmonton defensemen, let's see how they react, how quickly they can manage and go from defense to offense once they do get the puck.
Well, we're going to get into more Oilers topics here when we get to hire it or fire it. Specifically, probably one of the biggest storylines here in Jeff Skinner, and exactly what's going on with his game. We will get to that with hire it or fire it. But I wanted to ask you guys, what is going on in the state of New York? There's hockey issues there. I mean, obviously the Rangers. They were on so many lists as Stanley Cup contenders, champs. They're sitting at 500. They're 15-15, 3-7-0 in their last 10. I mean, they traded Jacob Trouba, Capo Caco yesterday. Cass, what's going on in New York? The Rangers. I mean, we can talk about Buffalo as well, but specifically the Rangers. Is this season gone? Is it too far gone now?
Not yet. If St. Louis has shown us anything in the last number of seasons, they have shown us that you can struggle, and then if you find a way to get into the playoffs, you can still win. And New York still has that capacity. Now, it's going to be a challenge for them to do so, but I haven't written them off yet. Now, as to what's going on, I think it starts at the top, where you did a great job of alienating Trouba before the season even started and creating that mess, which, the guy that's a leader in your dressing room, captain, all of a sudden there's, emotional issues going on. There's things that people aren't settled in the dressing room. And it kind of, I think, is spilt out into their game in so many ways, because if we look at their players, they should be a contender. They should be a contender. Now, you move on from Capo as well, where, he's maybe hasn't blossomed into everything he's going to be as a player yet, but he's coming along. So a younger guy now that you move on from, it's created an interesting situation there. So I think management decisions, and we could look at the coaching staff as well, potentially how players were implemented, what's being said in the room, what's going on as to, and we're guessing because we're not sitting in the room, but yeah, guys, I think management started to make some mistakes with publicly how they handled some things, and it just kind of all flowed out from that.
There's two things.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's
Gage.
two things that are puzzling from the outside looking into that whole situation. The first one is the rumblings that the players are upset with the general manager. I've never really
with Drury.
Yeah. I've never really heard that. Like he's the way he's acting or doing things. There's the respect factor, or now the lack of it, between player and GM is odd, because it still seems like it's intact with the players and the coach. And I've said I was able to be under Peter Laviolette for a short amount of time. I found him to be a really good coach. So that's puzzling to me. I've never seen that. I've
seen it.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah.
Really?
Do tell.
Let's. When did this?
Well, last year, when Alfie left, and you had management completely dropped the ball with how that was handled publicly. So you had a captain wanted to resign. You sewer him publicly as a general manager.
This is Daniel Alfredsson you're talking about.
Daniel Alfredsson sewered by Brian Murray, and that relationship with the organization for Alfie took a long time to repair. But it said some things publicly about Alfredsson, which really upset the player. And I think every single guy in that dressing room went, "What the heck is going on?" And nobody was happy about it. Everyone was like, "Why are they doing this? Why are they handling?" And we completely fell apart that year. Surprise, surprise. I completely fell apart that year.
I could say but to me it's a little bit different, Cass, because he's sewering everybody, right? It's not just the one player. I had kind of the same situation when Bill Guerin was traded, right? No one liked it, and it wasn't that Kevin Lowe sewered him, but it was more along the lines of how can you trade? We were probably a little bit upset with him because he was such an integral part of that team, right? So that was.
But that's different. That's different because that's like, oh man, I can't believe they made that trade. That's different than, man, I can't believe how they're treating people. Like that. Those to me, those are two different things. To say I can't believe they made this hockey decision versus I can't believe they would go out and say this publicly, do this publicly, to handle this situation this way, and have that bleed out into your room.
But don't you think Drury's been subbing everyone on that team? Like he's.
Yeah, maybe.
I get what you're saying. I completely agree with you. But it was one player, albeit one of the best NHL players. I would say, Alfie meant more to that team.
Well, that team, especially
off the ice and on the ice, and he was a dynamo on the ice. But I just all the things that you're hearing, and it shows because here you've got a young player. Although I believe Capo Caco's been in the league for 5 years. This would never happen before, but to publicly say, I don't know why he's benching me, and just that was like, wow. And then kind of go, you'd never hear that in the papers. You'd hear him say it, away, but for him to come out and say that, it just shows me that
there's two sides to this story, right?
Yeah. There's just it's broken.
And he was a second overall pick.
Yeah.
He's been underwhelming to say the least in his 5 years with New York.
I'm going to say he's going to have one hell of a career because there's a lot of upside with that player. Sure. And I think you'll see kind of the similar thing with Podkolzin, right? First rounder, with the team. He's always got that label of a first rounder with the team that's drafted him. Now he goes, and now he's a top player that's been traded to another team. That first round stigma is kind of gone now. He doesn't have to hear that every single day anymore.
Yeah, that can be taxing for sure. And there were rumblings, reports that there was a closed door meeting between the Rangers players following they had a loss on Sunday night, and Chris Drury was the point of contention throughout that meeting. Boys, I've never had a closed door meeting with players, but from what I understand, that's not a good thing when you're at that point. No. Is it a rallying point, or is it something that, hey, we got to turn this around, we got to do it ourselves, forget the noise? Or, Cass, what are your thoughts on those closed door meetings?
You don't want to have very many of them because you don't have to have closed door meetings when everything's going well, right? Like that's generally a time to air grievances and to speak very, very plainly and bluntly. And the point of the closed door meeting is to not have management in there, right? Like, so you can actually say what you're feeling and what you're thinking without repercussions from coaching staff or GMs or anybody. Like it's a safe space because you can't, how often, you're with the coach in the room, are you going to criticize the coach with the coach in the room that controls your ice time and your job? With the general manager that is going to dictate your next contract that might trade you, you're going to criticize him in the room and get that off your chest? No, you can't. And so to be able to talk about those things and those frustrations and put it then to a leadership group who can go and then, if you talk to the assistant captain or captain about it in a closed door meeting, and the captain can go and say, hey, we have guys that are saying this. This is what people are saying. This is what people are concerned about, is very different than one individual having to have those conversations and potentially getting blackballed for it or traded or sacrificed from an ice time standpoint. So they're important to have, but they're generally a sign that not all is well and that things aren't going well. So yeah,
sorry, Cass, to cut you off there.
No, all good.
Gage, have you been in a closed door meeting?
Oh yeah. Yeah, most of the time, in the NHL, I think we had a couple, but I didn't care because I didn't play that much. I just I went and grabbed popcorn and just kind of listened. But no, it's good because it kind of clears the air too, right? It's almost like a group therapy session more than anything. That gets done, and usually by the end of it, your leader, and that doesn't always mean it's the guy with the C. But your true leader will stand up and essentially what those meetings are for is to get everyone on the exact same page. Because usually when things are going wrong, everyone's going in different directions, trying to do things. You're just trying to corral the group together, whether you agree with the message of the coach or the systems or this and that. If you can get everyone buying into it, you're going to have probably more success from moving forward than where you were at that moment.
Well, it's interesting for both of you to say, and this is something that I don't think most would know, is that there is, okay, let's let it all out, boys. It's just us here. Say whatever you want. But then the leader takes that information and says, okay, I'll relay this to who needs to hear it and say, this is what's going on in our locker room. This is what the players feel is happening. This is where they're slighted, what have you. But I didn't know how those shook out. I didn't know how those ended and how the message gets relayed. Because you're right, Cass. You're not going to say, Dustin's gone today, so everybody's just mouthing off about him around here. It's, we're just saying, screw that. No, just kidding. But I understand what you're saying. It is tricky when you have the people that are have I guess a say in your paychecks that are in the room, right?
Well, especially like there's usually some age gaps, and younger guys, there's role models within the dressing room that you look up to, and when those people might be criticizing you as a young guy, it's very difficult to tell a guy with way more experience and has had success at the NHL level why you're upset with him, and so it's. It's an eye opener. I remember, I think it was Anson Carter and Sergei Zoltak. They got into it pretty heavy because they were line mates for a time and they weren't using each other properly, right? And so that was heated. Dougie, I think, had to actually step in that one.
Thank goodness. Okay, fellas, it's time for Hire It or Fire It. GS Construction is hiring now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca. or their page on Indeed.ca. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. You're listening to Two Guys and a Goalie with the jovial Joaquin Gage and the magnifique Kassian on Edmonton Sports Talk. Your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. This is Hire It or Fire It, presented by GS Construction. Boys, hire it or fire it. Cass, I'm going to go to you on the first one here. Hire it or fire it. Jeff Skinner has more pressure to perform than Viktor Arvidsson.
Ooh. Glad you're going first, Cass.
Ooh, this is a toughie. He has more pressure to perform than Arvidsson. I'm going to fire it at the end of the day. I think Arvidsson has more pressure. Stylistically, you need him more. Like if I had to pick between Arvidsson being at his best for the Oilers or Skinner being at his best, you know what most likely is going to benefit more? I probably got to go Arvidsson because you still have McDavid, you still have Draisaitl, you still have guys that are offensive where that's, if Skinner's at his best, yes, it will help offensively. But I think Arvidsson is, you guys mentioned earlier, he brings that screw you to his game that drives people nuts. That's really hard to play against. And the Oilers don't have a lot of that. So I got to, I can't remember which is which.
You got to fire it.
But
you're saying Viktor Arvidsson has more pressure.
Yeah.
Gager?
Fire it. Yeah.
God, that's a good question. I'm going to hire it. I think that Jeff Skinner has more pressure on him. That's right. Like I'm hiring it because he hasn't been injured this whole time. We've seen him just be demoted down through the lineup. They're looking for anything from this guy at this point. It's although Corey Perry has had quite a lot of success recently. I think there's 6 even strength goals with Corey Perry. He's got to find a way to contribute to this team in not a negative fashion. And I think with Arvidsson just coming back, he'll have a game or two, a little bit more leeway. I think the ISOCAM is more on Jeff Skinner to see what he can do and his response to kind of being shuffled down. How's he gonna react to this? Is there gonna be slumped shoulders and mopey, or is he gonna, with ever amount of ice time, what is he gonna do with that tonight?
Yeah, we were talking about it in the bullpen, and that is a tricky one. Cass, I like the way you put that in saying that there's more expectation on Arvidsson to be that pain in your backside that just we haven't seen yet as Oilers fans. So it's a tough one for sure. Both have not been as what they were billed to be. Yeah. So this leads to the second question: hire it or fire it. Gage, I'm going to go to you first. Put you on the spot this time. Jeff Skinner will not be an Edmonton Oiler come March 8th, 2025. That is the day after the NHL trade deadline. Jeff Skinner will not be an Edmonton Oiler.
I'm going to fire it. I think he will be. I believe Hernan and I were kind of discussing this too. The initial reason for bringing Jeff Skinner in, I think when you look at the last few games against the Florida Panthers, what happened, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid go dry. They don't score, don't put any points up on the board. They're looking for anything else. He was brought in for those moments when needed most, and the Oilers need a goal that's coming from somewhere else, and a guy with skill who's done it before, that's his job. So to me, really, and I think for most Oiler fans, and I know they want to see him have success in the regular season, but as long as the Oilers get there and make it, who cares? From game 83 on is where I think the most value of Jeff Skinner will be appreciated and needed, because it can't be put on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl for throughout the playoffs. There's going to have to be those unsung heroes that contribute as well. Maybe Jeff Skinner, and I know he hasn't played a playoff game, but I do think once that rolls around, you could see something. And I know maybe people are snickering at that, but I that's the reason he was brought in here, was to score when it mattered most, when maybe it was dry everywhere else.
Cass, there are those that also say, and I was, we'll get to this after, but Skinner's kept getting these demotions. I mean, the first thing they did with Podkolzin was put him up with Draisaitl, and of course, or he was on the top line.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to shine there, but that's been a different story for Jeff Skinner. Cass, Jeff Skinner will not be an Edmonton Oiler come March 8th. Hire it or fire it.
Fire it. I mean, you're not going to trade a guy that can potentially play in your top 6, or if someone goes down in your top 6, can fill in there and has a history of scoring goals. Like, why? I mean, the only reason he would get moved is if it's part of a package for a defenseman that you can bring in. But with that being said, no one's going to, well, maybe they would in terms of money out, money in, if you need to make it work. Potentially he could be a part of that, but I just don't see it happening. Fire it.
Okay. That's fair. That's why you asked the question.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
fire
what
it.
do you
I
think?
think fire it. I think fire it. But I would like to see him given better opportunities. I mean, you're playing with Janmark and Perry tonight. Sorry, but if it maybe put him up with Podkolzin and Draisaitl. Move Kapanen down. Just try and mix it up to get him in a position to just get it going. Once it's going, because there were glimmers of hope early in the season. Him and Arvidsson both looked decent at times. And Skinner was actually surprising with how much he'd get into those hard areas, but it just seems like he's not getting the promotion and the chances. Now that sounds like an excuse, and possibly it is. But yes, I think you want to have a player like that around come playoffs times. come playoff time, which our coup, Matty Iwanek, has always said that's the only time that matters for these Oilers, right?
I'm just looking at if we're looking to have certain success, and I think you could say that Perry's been quite good this year.
Sure.
And sorry, the centerman on the fourth line is now
Janmark,
who's been really good. I think one of the best over the last little while. And looking at if it's a complete matchup of fourth line against fourth line for the Boston Bruins is Beecher, Wahlstrom, and Koepke. So if you're going to put him into a place where to have success, I think he probably should have success.
Fair
going
point.
Up against that line.
That's
right?
fair.
So that the Oilers' fourth line, if there is a matchup like that, they should feast on that line.
Cass?
Hopefully they feast on that line. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I'm not running out to say because I don't think he's earned more opportunity right now, but there were spots. As mentioned, where he was really good. Like we've seen these little moments and these little flashes. So yeah, I hope they dominate as a fourth line. They should be able to. Should.
Now, guys, I have one more hire it or fire it that is Christmas related, but I'm going to hold off on that for a minute. We're gonna stick with the Oilers here, and I've got a question. You know, when I was younger, I was told no question's a stupid question, Jay. And although this may be to you two guys, yeah, that's not true. You might prove me wrong here, Kaz.
There are stupid questions.
Yeah. Oh God, this might win an SD. But why do they being the Oilers coaching staff, why do they list Nurse and Stetcher together when they rarely play during the game? It's Nurse and Kulak. Is this some sort of gamesmanship or what am I missing here? Because it's always Nurse and Kulak will come game time, but on the lineup, morning skate, Nurse and Stetcher. I don't get it. Gage?
You know what?
It's semantics. I get it.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand it.
I think in pregame skates, a lot of times you have the opposing team watching. They're obviously watching in warm-up. When you get the game sheets, that's kind of how you'd probably have it on there. But yeah, it's not really gamesmanship because most teams know that nursing.
They know, they know.
Right? So it's not, and I don't know. That could be a study done because when they come into the room, they'll have the lineup on the board, right? So I'd be interested to see how whatever assistant coach is writing that on the board, how he implements the other team when he knows that Kulak and Nurse play together. Does he just copy the game sheet or does he actually look? Because as a team, when you're looking at it, Nurse and okay, well maybe we can attack that, but that doesn't really happen too much. But
what, are you coming up with an individualized? You're not coming up with an individualized game plan. Like in playoffs, I would say, okay, that's the gamesmanship in playoffs.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to set something up and teams are planning on how they're going to attack. But for one-offs during the regular season, to me, it's just inconsequential. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like,
so it's official. It was a stupid question.
No, not completely. It was. I've heard a lot worse. So it's not going to win an SD.
People probably don't know that, right? You know, if you're watching the game and you see the lineup cards on Sportsnet or whatever, it'll say that, and then you're like, well, why isn't he playing with him? You know, and too many times I think people look at the lineups and they think it's
set in stone.
Well, yeah, they think it's Moses coming down with the lineup card, right? It's
Here's
in
the
stone.
commandments.
No.
Hey, good question here from Waddy and Cloverdale, and then we'll get to our last hire it or fire it as we get ready for EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage. Waddy and Cloverdale says, how much of Skinner not playing in the top six falls on 29 and 97? Do they maybe feel he isn't a fit? And the reason I say this is an interesting question is because the Podkolzin bump seemed to be attached to Draisaitl liking that style of play and working well with them. Is that the case, or do you think this falls on 29 and 97 in the case of Jeff Skinner?
Yeah, they have a say, right? Those guys have a say, and there's a part of it where if they're not thrilled and they don't positionally like, or they don't feel that it's working, they're going to get precedence. They're absolutely getting precedence in what they want to see happen. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that was a part of it.
Gager?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably taught. The coach does. He doesn't say who you want to play with,
right?
But probably in a
how's it
roundabout
feel?
way.
You don't think they say that?
You think so?
They absolutely they do.
I don't think they do.
Or if the coach isn't like, oh, hey, who do you want to play with? You want to tell me that McDavid or Draisaitl, if they didn't like their line mates, wouldn't walk in and sit down and say, hey, I really don't like playing with this guy?
Well, if it's Jesse Puljujarvi, maybe. But
well, yeah.
I
dare say anything bad. I'll take
know.
Dusty's spot. Don't say anything bad. You can't say anything bad.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've always had a hard time with that. But I'm sure it happens. But I also see the body language of players with their teammates, and it doesn't look like there's disdain for Jeff Skinner on.
Well, it's not disdain though.
Well, no, I'm just going
that
like sometimes
disdain. Like
how many times last year did we see Leon being a little bit upset and kind of moving away from Evander Kane on the bench, right? Like
yeah, that's different. That's different.
How's that different?
Because that could be disdain. Like that's different. Like there's a difference of like, hey, stylistically, I don't like playing with this guy. Doesn't mean I don't like him as a person. Doesn't mean we have personal conflict. Doesn't mean that there's other issues, right? Where we've seen Evander Kane have issues with guys in the past, and seeing some of that physical body language, it's like, well, it's carried off the ice as opposed to on occasion seeing frustration. So I don't know. I just think that could be different.
Hey, agree to disagree. Agree. But hey, at the end of the day, it is the festive spirit here, fellas. Mm-hmm. For the last question for Hire It or Fire It, I want to, really go down memory lane here, and I really want to dig in here, fellas, and get us all kumbaya and ready for some eggnog and some family cheer and some wassailing, singing, all the good stuff. Hire It or Fire It. Cass, I'll go to you first. Christmas cards are extremely overrated and a waste of money. Hire It or Fire It.
Like, what do you mean by Christmas cards? Now, do you mean like
a Christmas
with
card with a gift? Like you put a card on it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or hey, I'll go Aunt Judy's Christmas card that she sends in the mail too. I'll go that route too. Unless there's a red bill in there, then what are we doing here, Aunt Judy?
Yeah, I'm gonna fire it. I don't think they're overrated. Now, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have absolutely been a Hire It. But as I get older and more nostalgic, even to you blessing us with the words you did today and the monikers, nicknames are important. Adding those things are important. The power of words and writing things to people, especially in a day where, maybe most communication is like 160 characters or less. I think it's getting more and more important. It doesn't have to be on an expensive card. Maybe it's just a little note with it, but I would say they're not overrated. And I used to not hate, that's too strong a word, much too strong a word. But I used to kind of be like, I don't get like Christmas cards and pictures with the family, but I get them now and I like them now. And one of the things that's, I think if you're a family that does that, you should do, or if your family that doesn't do it, you should start, is even on like some of those Christmas cards, like to have life updates that you can give the other person to share what's going on with you, but then just some notes of encouragement. So no, I'm gonna fire it. I don't think they're overrated. Now, just buying a card, I would say yes if it was just a card and you only put a card and you just sign your name. But if you take the time to write something personal and encouraging, get Chat GPT, GBT, whatever, the AI to help you if you don't have ideas. But yeah, I think it can be important and beneficial, and you can have an impact in a positive way on someone's life beyond what the actual gift is. So fire it.
Wow, that round of clicks, Kat. That was exceptional. I didn't know you'd go to such depths there, but the way you said it makes me because I'm Hire It. Cards, birthday cards, and there's so many different levels. You're right, but if somebody does take the time to write something, give you an update on what their family's doing. Hey, Joey's in grade 10. This is what sports. that is interesting, and there's there's not many people doing that still. But I'm, the card that you just, hey, thanks for your business. We used to get that a lot at our furniture store.
No.
And it's like, get out of here, man. I don't even, Gager.
So there's a couple different types of Christmas cards, right? Like there's the card on the present. I'm not, usually that's not a big deal to me. But the Christmas card where people actually go and do something special. Everyone says this, and I had to look up the name because I forgot him. But I played the years, God, this is really back then, but 98, 99 in Portland, Maine. And a really awesome little place to play.
Lobster rolls.
Oh my gosh,
baby.
man. It was great. We would just go down. Everyone had like a big pot on the team, and we would just go down to the water because it was right on the water, right? And so the fishermen would come off, and we just go buy like how much for 2 lobsters, and we throw them a couple bucks, and they'd throw us.
No way.
Yeah, like 2.5.
Oh.
And everyone had a huge pot, and we instead of usually you'd go over to guys' places and throw a couple burgers or steaks. It was always lobster in Maine. It was just
unreal.
great, just unreal. If you ever get a chance to go to Portland, Maine, it's a glorious little place. But and all the New Yorkers that couldn't afford to go to like the Hamptons would buy places in. I think it was called Old Orchard Beach outside of Portland. And it's like those, those shows where it's the big grassy hills on the sand dunes and the big cabins, but
beach
houses right on the beach.
Yeah.
So it's too cold up there in the winter. So guys were renting these things for like a couple $100 for a month. People were just glad someone was in there.
Just
right?
taking care of it.
So it was Todd Roloff, Casey Hankinson, and Dan Cleary, who were all with the Chicago Blackhawks at the time. They rented this house, and it was just it would blow your mind.
Really?
It was rustic, like two levels. It was just gorgeous. But their Christmas card was the best. They went out onto the beach with red Speedos and Christmas hats, and obviously a lot younger and fit. Yeah. And we all got Christmas cards from Old Orchard Beach from those guys.
Oh my gosh!
When it was funny,
awesome.
like it was just hilarious.
Some of the funny ones are great.
Hilarious.
I'll see if I can find it on my phone. I'll send it to the EST chat. But this was years ago. That myself and a group of my friends, we went and took a Christmas card together, and it was glorious. Like one or two of the guys like aren't wearing shirts in it, and it's like done like a nice family one, and it's pretty good. Some of those can be pretty funny too.
I
those
like
ones are good in there.
I love the humorous ones where like all the kids are like crying and
yes.
Have
you seen the ones where it's like a real family photo and it's like mom's like you sit here, and maybe the kids are a little bit older, like in their late young adults, and they're all giving the middle finger secretly in the picture.
I saw
and
that.
just ruin mom's picture. Like you can just see that happening. Right?
Great.
Okay, well, fellas, this is going to. Cass, I'm not going to see you again. I know you'll probably be on oil stream stuff here and whatnot. So, what do you guys got going on? You sticking around here? Or you got some traveling to do for the Christmas season?
No, I'll be back. I knocked a lot of travel out. Was just in Seattle and got back yesterday. So yeah, we'll be kicking around here. So a lot of oil stream and hanging out.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and your family. I missed my chance last time when I was at one of the press conferences. I saw your dad, and he informed me the next time he sees you to kick you in the shins as hard as I could. I missed my opportunity when you were in the office, but I'll get you in the new year. Gager, what do you guys got coming up on EST Afternoons?
We'll obviously talk a little bit about the game. We've got Red Light District coming up. Videric Van Diest at 1:40, and this we're gonna just go around the NHL, CFL. There's talk about the trade with the Rangers probably.
Yeah, how's track and field been going for you?
It's good. I've gotten far. I have to apologize. I know I had teased a special guest. He got back to me today, and he can't. He's double booked himself. So unfortunately, we won't have this special guest probably until the new year. So I apologize to you nasties, but just know that it'll happen. It'll happen.
Maybe next year, eh?
Next year. Won't happen until next year.
You one of those guys?
Yeah.
You a next year joker?
Well, we'll see you next year.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay, for myself, for the jovial Joaquin Gage and the marvelous Magnifique Matt Kassian. This has been Two Guys and a Goalie, presented by GS Construction on Edmonton Sports Talk. Your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Coming up is EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage.